News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
So welcome to Montreal. It's
It's
nice
good to get back.
You look good with a CJAD microphone in your
Well,
hand.
thank you. I may have a job coming up. I can see that in my old age.
I don't know if you actually that's something you'd want to go into. You seem to be doing pretty well at what you're doing.
Yeah, I love what I'm doing, but I've DJ'd quite a few times, actually. I took
Really?
a job with William B. Williams down in New York, who was the big jockey. I did a week there. Did a week out west. Did something in Vancouver. I mean, I've just been fascinated because I can't keep my mouth shut.
Now, when you were growing up,
Yes. I've never grown up.
okay, when you were getting older,
Yeah, better.
what did you listen to as a kid in Ottawa?
Well, I listened to everything. Keep in mind that back in the 50s, pop music was in its infancy stage. Thus, you were limited to what you heard. You ultimately always were around a radio, so you'd be listening to R&B. I'd be listening to country, Hank Williams, Sonny James, Elvis Presley, Bill Haley and the Comets. There was two major stations that I listened to, and that gave me all my music. And then I'd go buy records down at the record store because I had a paper route, and I was a caddy, and I saved up all my money, and I'd go buy records, especially the R&B stuff.
Where'd you caddy?
Out at Chaudière Golf Club.
Yeah. So tell me about your first big break. There's stories of going to a singing competition in Aylmer. There's
Oh.
How old were you when you wrote Diana, and how old were you when you recorded it, and what did that have to do with everything?
Well, started emanated in a school where I was taking shorthand and typing because I wanted to be a journalist, and I worked as a cub reporter at the Ottawa Citizen. Got thrown out of shorthand, took music, so I got interested in music. Then I would go to church and to parties, and I would see this girl who was about 4 years older than I was. Her name was Diana. But back then, unlike today, if you were younger, if you were shorter, if you, girls weren't interested. So I wrote this song about this older girl, 4 years older.
But how old were you at the time?
14.
14.
Mm-hmm. Wrote it for her and sang it at parties. Then wrote another song and another song at the piano after my lessons. And I realized at that point I wanted to be in the music business. Now, unlike today, where you have all of this to refer to, with these American, Canadian Idols, all these shows, I had nothing to refer to. I just had the fire in my gut, knowing I wanted to be in the music business, and I had to find a way to get to the source of how to get my music there. So it was a whole different kettle of fish. I would go to rock and roll shows that would go through Canada with Chuck Berry, Fats Domino, play Montreal, Toronto, wind up at our hockey arena. I would break into a dressing room and I'd see Chuck Berry, who was an idol of mine. Got lucky, and there he was in front of me. I said, "Mr. Berry, my name is Paul Anka, and I got a song, and I want you to hear it," not knowing whether it was for him or for me. He listened to me. I sang Diana. He looked at me and said, "It's the worst song I ever heard. Go back to school." So that set me back, right? But I didn't give up. Then I got a job collecting soup wrappers at IGA because there was a big contest. 40 boys from across Canada would get to go to the United States, to New York. So I went and got a job at IGA food stores so I could be close to the soup cans and monitor what the women were buying. Go to their homes, collect the soup cans. I won the contest for my district. Thus I wind up in New York. There's Alan Freed. There's the New York Paramount. I get the bug. Go back home. Borrow some money on my following school year. Get back to New York again. I'm living in a bathtub at the President Hotel with a vocal group I knew from Canada, the Rover Boys. I wind up at ABC Paramount Records. Don Costa, one of the unsung heroes, brilliant musician, heard me, loved what I did, said, "Where's your parents?" I said, "Back in Canada." The head of the company comes in. He said, "We need them. You can't sign a contract. You're a kid." So I flew my parents down. They walked in. They were stunned. Remember, there was none of this around. And that was it. About a month later, I'm in a studio doing Diana. Out it came, and my life changed at the completion of that.
Now, the people, your life at that time was documented in the very famous NFV film
Lonely
Boy.
Boy. Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at that. They showed us that in school, and it was this
Classic.
classic golden age of the National Film Board. But it also showed you were the original Justin Bieber.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess he's today's Paul Anka.
Yeah, exactly.
A little
what
big
do you
hair
think-
difference,
what
but
do you,
there
what
you
do you
have
think
it.
of when you see? What do you think of when you see, pop stars like that now that the kids are going crazy for? Like the girls would have done anything to get near you. They were beside themselves, crying and screaming.
Yeah. Well, I kept yelling, come on in, come on in. They wouldn't let him in the hotel. You know what it is? It's the same BS today, right? It's same thing but more lights. I hate to trivialize it, but what I'm saying is there'll always be that. I went through that. Then the Beatles went through that. Every decade you've got it. The real issue right now for me is when you look at it today, there's a diametric difference to what it was yesterday. We weren't in a media-driven society. You had a chance to fail. You had a chance to really find out who you were. You know, success does not automatically make you brilliant and able to deal with life. You know, on the contrary, it's tough. You are crawling around in a state of panic trying to behave yourself. And when you look at these kids today, and with Justin, whatever that is, I can't stand in judgment of Justin. I don't know anything till I see it. He's a young boy, and there's just so much that goes on in today's world with enablers, people around you. It may not be as serious, but he's watched every minute like they all are. And what you have is someone who's trying to find his identity, trying to find how to deal with this. Because it ain't easy. You know, you're locked in a room, like I was, screaming girls all over the street. All you want to do is sing. You're not making decisions for yourself. And you want to make decisions based on intelligence. And in most cases, if you don't have those people around you to help you, you're dead in the water. And you need to go back to, if you're analyzing this today, who are the parents? What are they like? What were they like when you grew up? What was your education? Reason? That is the byproduct of what you are today, dealing with success.
So Paul Anka records a hit, Diana. What year was that?
1957 it came out.
Okay. And so you become a big star, and then you go on to, at a reasonably young age, write huge hits like My Way. You know, My Way is the anthem for somebody who's on the last stages of his life. How old were you when you wrote My Way?
Well, I wasn't on the last
No, I
stages,
know.
obviously, and I was in my late 20s,
Right.
but able to articulate what my feeling was for the me generation, and for a man that for many years would say, kid, when are you going to write me a song? That's Frank Sinatra. Never having the balls to show him puppy love or anything like that. The guy would have thrown me out of the room, you know, puppy love. So I knew he hated pop music, but I needed to write something for him. I was a writer, and I was in that mode of writing in a sense like typecasting. I wrote The Longest Day, The Tonight Show theme, Buddy Holly. So I was in that writing mode and always knew it would be my security and gave me an extra gravitas from all of these teen people. I wasn't raised as a teen idol. I wasn't a good-looking guy. I was just a cute little kid from Canada, but my whole MO was a writer. So when Sinatra says write something, when he tells you he's retiring, you go home to your typewriter and piano and you say, okay, retiring, he's never coming back again. He's at that final passage of his life, and you start metaphorically. And now the end is near, and so I face final curtain. And it wrote itself, because I put myself in the place of this guy that I knew so well, who was going to do one more album, call it quits, and be gone. And he did, 5 times. He came back after the success of My Way, and they all started retiring. You know, every time you'd turn around, some artist was retiring, but it would be 2 and 3, 4 times. So in answer to your question, you're right enough, and you're young enough to write. Okay, that's nothing new historically. But I wasn't old enough to sing it, and that's why the record company I was with got real pissed and asked me why I didn't do it. I said, hey, you got to hang your ego hat at the door. You know, I'm a writer first. I'm not the guy to get that message out. There is no greater entertainer or singer in the world than Frank Sinatra for me. He's the guy that's got to do that.